as many of you know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as I mentioned before, is a member of Congress, and she's very popular. She's very well liked among, among the leftist kind of lefty to democratic types, and but she's not really. Not a lot of people are crazy about her these days. Let's just put it that way. I'm putting it very, very nicely, and a lot of people aren't feeling her these days because she is doing a lot of, she's giving in way too much, giving in too much to the Pelosi, Schumer, Democratic Party, higher ups, leaders, whatever the hell you want to call it, the people that run the party, the DNC, those types, and honestly, in many cases, Joe Biden too. And I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. It's one of those things that you like. I had so much hope for AOC, and I had so much confidence that she was going to. I mean, she was basically going to be the next one that was gonna kind of like ride us into that future. Not that she was gonna. I don't think she was like. I was never under the impression that she was gonna like run for president in 2024. I think it's gonna be a while until if she does run for president. I heard rumors that she's gonna like run for Senate or something. That could happen. We'll see what happens in that regard. But yeah, I was never under the impression that she was going to run for president, but definitely I thought like, hey, let's say if we have AOC there, we have President Bernie Sanders, something like that, or maybe even whatever, even if Bernie Sanders was somebody's VP or something, at least we would be building upon that kind of that foundation of being, okay, so we're getting somewhere. We're truly getting like progressive members of Congress, progressive members, maybe in the Senate, maybe somebody as VP, or maybe just like different members of the cabinet, whatever the cabinet would be. Obviously, now we see it's the Biden cabinet, and it's a shitty cabinet, and it's a bunch of corporatist and establishment types. But AOC really, for a lot of us, she was the hope. She was the next great hope, the next best hope, whatever the hell you want to call it. And honestly, these days, she's just not that anymore. And you'll know what I'm talking about in a second. So I'm going to play you guys this clip. And this was I guess a announcement or something where she put out this announcement saying that, we're going to, we're going to push for this, whatever, this policy, this, again, going back to the stimulus bill, the $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. So she was basically getting into the details of that and explaining what she thinks about that. And so let me play you guys the clip here, and then we'll discuss it on the other side.
Let's talk about student loans, because I found something very interesting in this bill. Now, before everyone gets ahead of themselves, there is not student loan cancellation in this bill, but there is a provision that feels like an Easter egg, which I think gives us some hope, because not only are college students going to get, stimulus checks that they didn't get last year, but I noticed, and some people noticed, that there is a tax provision tucked away that says if your student loans get canceled, that cancellation, you don't have to pay taxes on that cancellation. Which, in other words, you wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be processed in as though, it would not be, if your student loans get canceled, it will not be treated as though the government gave you money for you to pay off your loan, so that you would have to pay taxes on that. So let's say you had, several $1,000s in student loan debt, you wouldn't pay taxes on the cancellation for that. Now, there's no student debt cancellation in the bill. So this provision that's tucked in, I think, tells us, if you care about student debt cancellation, it's go time for you. You need to mobilize And now is the time to organize, to create the political pressure, because in there, tucked away, is almost like a little, someone's paving the path. Someone's paving the path. And I can't claim credit for that provision. If you want, I can go into some of my specific contributions to this bill as a lawmaker. In fact, I will get into one of those a little bit later because it's part of money that you can get, additional funds that you can get. But progressives are looking out for you. And by the way, this is the benefit of electing a movement of progressives to Congress, because when there's so few of us, like if it's just, and this is the benefit, for example, of expanding the squad, because when there's just 4 of us, there's only so much we can do, right? There's only physically so many amendments that we can introduce, and people will say, why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Because we're human beings with 24 hours in a day. And so when you elect more progressive members to Congress who are not financed by big money, who are not financed by lobbyists, when you pitch in, small dollar donations, you get people who are looking out for everyday working people. And so I didn't have the bandwidth on this because I was working on unemployment, I was working on adding adult dependents, I was working on FEMA funeral assistance, which we'll get into, but we don't have to rely on one person to do everything. We've got people that are willing, the more progressives we get, the more progress we get. And so someone was looking out and included that, which paves the way for us to fight for student loan forgiveness and not have it, hit you on the back end in terms of getting taxed on that potential forgiveness. So that is a very important update on student loans that I think is really important. And I think it's good news. I think it's good news, and it's a positive update and progress in the fight on student loans.
So basically what AOC is trying to say there is that, you could see, I think a lot of people probably look at that and they're like, oh, okay, well, she's just trying to like explain what's in the bill, and then she's, giving information to people and trying to let them know, like, okay, this is how, I don't know, good this bill is, and it's gonna really help a lot of people. And obviously the same narrative that a lot of, obviously, like I said before, a lot of politicians are pushing, Bernie Sanders and everybody else. But no, this is honestly, it's, I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's gaslighting, but it's not. I think that term gets used a little bit too much for our own good. But when it comes to kind of the whole idea of AOC, she's become very milquetoast to the point that she just wants to, again, and this is kind of something, this is an argument I made earlier. She wants to make the point that, she wants to portray herself as trying to work with Democrats and trying to be like, okay, well, I'm just like kind of I'm involved in this fight, and I'm fighting for you guys and stuff like that. But in reality, she's really just saying things that we want to hear, I think. And a lot of it's really hard to like take her seriously and just like really, like I said before, I had so much hope for her, but it's hard to really have a lot of hope for somebody when you don't feel like they are truly, when they're truly fighting for you. When it came to force the vote on Medicare for All, she didn't want to do that. And that was something that people like Jimmy Dore, Brianna Joy Gray, and all these, lefties and progressives were pushing for, and she didn't want to have anything to do with it because she thought it was too dangerous. And that was done to leverage the leadership of Nancy Pelosi. And now she's saying, so, and I responded in a tweet myself, I guess I'll get to that in a second because I want to explain my issue with what she was saying here. But so obviously, after explaining that the American Rescue Plan, is doesn't have student loan debt cancellation, she says it's go time for you, referring to leftists who say, who she says need to mobilize and organize to create political pressure. So already she's not. I mean, I don't know if she doesn't truly, but like how does she not get the fact that we were doing that when it came to force the vote? We were already doing that back then. We've been doing it for all this time. When Bernie was running, when she was running initially, when she initially came into office, in her first term, because she's in her second term now, and we constantly were organizing. We were constantly mobilizing. We were pushing for all these different kind of things. Now she's trying to claim like, oh, well, now I'm trying to push you and more motivate you to do this because I think it's the right thing. Well, we were already doing it, so we don't need you to tell us that we need to do something that we were already doing. So it doesn't make a lot of sense why she's putting this message out there. It just seems like a lot of faux aggressive, kind of motivation when we've already been on that. We've already been on that kick. So I don't know what she's trying to get to here. But honestly, it just looks like she's trying to redeem herself after force the vote when she got a lot of pushback from lefties for that, for sure. So she also claims that progressives are looking out for you, seemingly referring to legislators in Congress who are advocating for policies that the left wants, and that this, quote, paves the way to fight for those policies in the future. Again, we were already fighting for those policies. So we've already been fighting for Medicare for all. We've already been fighting for student loan debt cancellation. We've already been fighting for, ending the wars. We've already been fighting for Medicare for all. This, universal health care. We've been doing all this. So I don't understand. Again, I don't understand what she's getting to. It doesn't. You're just beating a dead horse here. We've already been doing all this stuff. So I don't get what she's trying to accomplish. But I guarantee you a lot of people are falling for this and being like, wow, she's such a progressive hero. Wow, she's such a champion for the progressive movement. Bro, we've already been doing all these things you've been talking about. So, I mean, yeah, seriously, you're just beating a dead horse, and you're just trying to pretend like you're on our side when you're really not. So it gets worse. So she proclaims that this is the benefit of electing a movement, quote, electing a movement, bringing up the squad, which consists of herself and Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, as well as newly elected members like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. And I think Mondaire Jones is another one that's on that list too, when it comes to the squad. So she's just at least as far as that part goes, she's just advocating for more, for us pushing. For us, so as voters, as progressives and as voters, to elect more people like her and more people like all these different people that I mentioned, all the members of the squad. So basically, just more people get involved in the political democratic process, and I don't mean democratic as far as party. I'm talking about democratic as far as democracy. And if anybody has been following elections for the last, I don't know how long now. I mean, certainly 20 years, 10 years, 20 years, we don't have a democracy. Our democracy is is controlled by the corporate establishment because it's the rich that are buying the system, the rich that are dictating how the system works. Now, to be fair to people like AOC, like Ilhan Omar, like Rashida Tlaib, all these people, they're not corporate financed candidates. All the other members of Congress are. They are not. So I want to make that clear. But this is an argument that Jimmy Dore has made. If you are not corporate financed, but you're still going out and supporting corporate candidates, aka Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, who obviously AOC, Cori Bush, Tlaib, Ilhan Omar voted for, they also supported Biden. They said Biden is the candidate, this is the person you should be supporting, blah, blah, blah. It's not enough to be free of corporate finance. I get it. That's a good thing. but that only goes so far. That should be a duh. That should be like an of course you're not gonna be financed by big corporations and corporate donors and rich donors and stuff. Yeah, okay, great, wonderful. Like that should be the standard, right? But that should be like that. That should be a very low standard. Actually, we should go higher than that. That should not be that should be a very low. That's a very low bar. We need to be going even higher than that. So we should not be supporting corporatist candidates like I said, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, all that stuff. Let alone all the members of Congress that are already there and bought out by the establishment, by corporate donors. But being a non-corporate funded candidate or politician, supporting corporatist members of Congress or whatever, and presidents, let alone their corporatist policies. What good are you if that's the case? Because, okay, so you're not corporate finance, but you're going on supporting all of the policies of the corporate finance people, corporate finance politicians. That makes no sense. That doesn't help anybody. So, that's one thing that I don't even understand. I don't get how they don't see that. They think they're like, oh yeah, we're not financed by corporations, we're not financed by big money. But then you're going on supporting all the policies of the politicians. So I'm sorry, the politicians who support the policies that are corporatist, right? So it doesn't make any difference. It's the same exact thing. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's how I see it, at least. So and then she touts the benefit of expanding the squad, and with only 4 members, there's only so much they can do, and so many amendments they can introduce. Yeah. Okay. So again, she's promoting us to get involved in this so-called democratic system, when in reality it's a very broken system, and it's a very corporate system. And even if you're not one of the candidates one of the politicians that's part of that system, in the sense that you're not taking part in it, you're still part of it. And then you still want to get us involved so that we can go and keep electing more members of Congress that are not corporate funded, but that will give in to the corporatist, to their corporatist leaders like Nancy Pelosi, like Chuck Schumer, and the like. So, yeah, that's unacceptable. I'm sorry. You can be as grassroots funded as you want, but if you're funded by corporatist candidates, if you're backing corporatist candidates just because the Republican is so bad, that doesn't make you any better than them. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. And so she's pushing leftists to help elect more members to Congress, and who are uncorrupted by big money, and donating small dollar donations so more of them can get into office. And yeah, so that's just, I already made that argument. It's ridiculous. It doesn't help anybody, honestly, in the long run. We'll see what it does in the long run. In the short term, it doesn't really do anything for us, because you're just getting people into Congress, and then they end up doing the same exact thing that we don't want them to do a lot of times. And then finally, she says that the more progressives that we get, the more progress we get. Even though when the vote for Nancy Pelosi as House Speaker came up, nobody in the squad, including Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman, still ended up voting for without pushing for any kind of policy concessions. And remember, when Joe Biden was initially was elected, and they were still counting the votes and stuff, everybody I think it was maybe even before he won, all these different progressives, they were talking about, what was it, committees, or what was it? They were talking about some sort of, like, not committees, but like some sort of like groups and things that you put together, like you get a bunch of people together, and you like recommend policies that Joe Biden should advocate for, or at least attempt to make law to some extent. And like I forgot what they called them. Well, anyway, whatever they were pushing for those kind of things, and that was their idea of like getting concessions from Joe Biden, even though he hasn't done any of those things. So I guarantee you, a lot of those policies were $15 minimum wage. A lot of them were, Medicare for all, and ending the wars, and student loan debt cancellation, stuff like that, and relief or whatever. Joe Biden hasn't done any of that stuff. All he's done is given us a one-time stimulus check, and then some child tax credits, and unemployment benefits that are $300, even though it was initially, at one point it was $600 in unemployment benefits. Then it got knocked down to $400, and then it got down to $300. So, and then means testing all these different things. And it's just like, oh my God, like typical corporate Democrat policies that like we cannot stand. even though you claim that these like committees or groups or whatever the hell you put together to push Joe Biden to the left, which I always see people I always see my leftist friends on Twitter and stuff. How's pushing Joe Biden left going? Yeah, it's because it's not going good at all. It's terrible. Obviously, they say it sarcastically, but yeah, it's going shitty because we can't get them to do anything. We can't get Joe Biden to do anything that we want because nobody has the backbone to truly stand up to him because they are not leaders. They're followers. They're afraid of Joe Biden. They're afraid of the establishment, and they don't want to upset any of the leaders in the party, because they know if that they upset any of the Pelosi's and Schumer's and stuff, they're going to get stripped of their committee assignments. They're not going to be on any powerful positions and stuff. So basically, the Democratic leadership is going to basically get back at them for daring to stand up to them and not take their shit anymore. And this was something that I thought AOC was going to do. I thought the squad was going to do this. But honestly, like, they only really did it, I would say only within the first couple, I would say the first year, maybe year and a half, maybe 2 years at most. So maybe just that first term. But certainly within the first year or so. I mean, even before AOC even got into office, she was protesting outside of Nancy Pelosi's office. And so that was like before she got into into Congress. AOC held a protest, I think, with I believe it was the Sunrise Movement, I believe, and she did a protest outside of Nancy Pelosi's office, and I was like, that's awesome. I was like very surprised that she did that. I was very happy to see that. I'm sure a lot of leftists were happy to see that, but after that, it's just gone downhill. And AOC can put out all these videos and stuff, pushing for all these. Oh, you should really mobilize, and you should really do, all these things that that are great, and they're gonna help get more of us into Congress and more of us into positions of power so that we can push for more policies. Yeah, but you're not doing that now. Like, what did you do? So, what are the policies? Like, she said, like, oh, I was busy doing all these things for, I forgot what things she said, for unemployment or something was. But like when it came to the American Rescue Plan, the $1 trillion stimulus bill, did you push for UBI? Did AOC push for UBI? Did AOC push for any kind of healthcare, expanding of any kind of healthcare benefits, Medicare for all, anything? Did she do any of that? Did she push for canceling student loan debt? Did she push for anything on climate change? Anything? I mean, I didn't hear it. Certainly, if she was doing it, I didn't hear about it. If she was doing it, I would have known about it, because I follow in the in the most leftist of leftist circles. I know what all these people are doing. I see what goes on Twitter. I see what people are talking about. It's all on Twitter. It all goes through the grapevine one way or another. I didn't hear about her doing any of these things. And again, if you push for these policies and you advocate for them and you want them, that's one thing. But fighting for them is truly the big thing. And people like her are not doing that. They don't do that. They don't know how to do that, because they're not fighters. Now, or at least a lot of us were hoping that Nina Turner would be one of those fighters that would get in there and do those things, but I don't even know if Nina Turner is going to be able to do that. It's possible. I mean, it's possible she does. I don't know. See, this is the thing. Like I said at the beginning of the segment, I told you guys, I had a lot of hope, speaking for myself. I'm sure a lot of other lefties that I know were of the same opinion. But when AOC got in there, we had a lot of hope that she was going to be like the next big thing. And I think a lot of people are hoping that same thing, that they're hoping that same thing to happen with Nina Turner. And I don't think that's going to happen. And Nina Turner did an interview a couple weeks ago where she said that, when she was asked on, force the vote and are you going to hold certain politicians accountable for not doing the things that they, that they want their constituents to do, she basically balked on that. She basically balked on it and said, well, no, you can't do that. You don't want to alienate this person and throw this person aside and then, upset them, or not upset them, but I mean, like, basically the whole point of, like, don't alienate. Don't count them out just because they don't want to do this one thing. Yeah, but this one thing is really, really big. So it's a really big deal. And it's not something small. It's a big deal to want to get Medicare for all. It's a big thing to want to get student debt relief. It's a big thing to get whatever, ending the wars and all these different things, $50 minimum wage, living wage, whatever. So you have to be able to hold people accountable. There was Kyle Kalinske of Secular talked about this, but he covered a segment that Kashama Sawant, who's actually a real socialist, running under the socialist label. I forget. I think it's Socialist Alternative Party or something. And she is a member of the I think the Seattle City of Seattle Council member or something, or Washington Council member, yeah, something like that. So she's one of the politicians in the state of Washington, very low level, but she's like obviously very well loved in the progressive lefty community. And she was going out there. She was on the Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray and Virgil Texas, and yeah, Kyle Kalinske covered this. But she went on that show, and they were having a conversation about AOC and everybody and all these different members of the squad, pushing for the policies and fighting for the policies they should be, let alone fighting the Democratic Party. And she said you have to learn and you have to know that you have to go into battle with the Democratic Party. If you truly want to get what you want, you truly want to get these policies passed, and you really want to start like a movement for the workers of this country and the middle class of this country, you have to go out there and fight the people that are in your party or in your own party. It doesn't matter if they're in your own party or not. If they don't agree with you on the policies, they don't agree with you, period. And that's the truth. And the more we go through this process, the more we go through all this stuff, the less confidence I have in the party, the two-party system. I mean, I'm already hating the two-party system as it is. But after AOC and the squad got in there, I was like, I had like a little bit of hope. I was like, okay, maybe we'll be able to get somewhere with that. But even with that, unfortunately, we couldn't get anywhere. And it was very, very disheartening because I thought that was going to be the next. I thought, like I said before, I thought she was the next big hope, the next great hope, whatever. And she was really going to get us over that hump. And we still haven't been able to do it, even with the squad. No matter how much expanding of the squad is going to happen or has happened, for now we're stuck. And for now, there is nowhere that we're going to be getting when it comes to any kind of future candidate that's running in 2020, as far as I know for now. I mean, we're still a long ways away from 2024. I'm sorry, 2024. But, I mean, it doesn't matter because, well, we'll see what happens. I don't know if Joe Biden's going to run, if he's going to make it by then. He claimed after he won or around the time that he was, that the election was happening, he said he was like, kind of hinting that he was only going to be a one-term president. But it doesn't matter because Kamala Harris wants to run anyway. So the question is there going to be a Democrat out there or whoever that's going to challenge Kamala Harris because she's the next big thing in the Democratic Party. She didn't even get one single fucking delegate in the primary. She couldn't even make it to the first primary. She actually dropped out before it even hit 2020, before the 2020 calendar year. So she was still stuck in 2019, didn't make it to the primary, didn't win a single delegate. She probably wouldn't have even won California, which ended up being won by Bernie Sanders because of the big Latino vote. The Latino vote was really big here in California, where I live, and yeah, but that's a large part of the reason why Bernie Sanders won, and that was also a large reason why he had a shot at Texas too, by the way, because of the Latino vote, but yeah, so Kamala Harris is not a candidate, honestly, that should be taken seriously by anybody, but the media. The Democratic Party, all these people, they're going to breed her. They're going to train her as much as possible and make her as big as they can so that she can be the next big thing. And there was other times where Joe Biden was talking about in interviews and stuff. This was when he was, I think also when he was running during the general, right before the general. He's like, the future of our party is Kamala Harris and people like Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg and I don't know. He probably threw in a couple Cory Booker or whatever. Threw a couple more people in there as well. But he was basically saying that, like, yeah, all these young politicians, not me, not some old white guy like me, yeah. I'm not the future of the party because I'm going to be fucking dying off soon, let alone with my dementia and fucking Alzheimer's or whatever the fuck I have. If you watch Joe Biden these days, he doesn't sound very coherent at all, let alone during the primary. But he was pushing the idea that, yeah, like all these younger members, they're going to be the ones that are going to be leading us. into the future. And, so, he thinks that all we need, the Democrats need, is just young members representing us, or young people pushing for that, kind of being that person in leading the party, pushing for basically the same policies that he's pushing for, not pushing for actual progressive policies. And that's the problem. And unfortunately, I don't see AOC or any of these people, being the types that can lead us into the future, at least for 2024. We'll see what happens with 2028 and further on after that. But in the short term, we don't have shit. We don't have nothing going into the next election, let alone with, like I said before, let alone with the midterm elections not looking too good either. So, yeah, it's not really looking for good for a lot of us here. So, you're gonna be witnessing a potential bloodbath in 2022.